Hey guys, so if you aren't aware, a long-term goal for the channel is to review every single Spider-Man movie. If you haven't seen me review the original Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3, no problem. You can click this playlist right here to go watch those reviews. And with that out of the way, let's swing back to 2012 and talk about the next Spider-Man in our lineup.
Peter, I know things have been difficult lately, and I'm sorry about that. I think I know what you're feeling. Ever since you were a little boy, you've been living with so many unresolved things. Well, take it from an old man. Those things send us down the road. They make us who we are.
So after Spider-Man 3 didn't quite live up to expectations, and then Sony scrapped Sam Raimi's ideas for Spider-Man 4, we had a big drought of Spidey content in movies. Meanwhile, the MCU was becoming massive. The time between Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, we got Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America, and the Avengers. So of course, the question on everyone's mind by the time Avengers was coming out, when are we gonna get Spider-Man again? Well, time was running short for Sony because if they didn't make another Spider-Man movie soon, their rights to him would expire and fold back into the MCU. Wouldn't that have been awesome? But no, feeling the pressure, Sony went to work on a Spider-Man for a new generation. And they cast one of the coolest up-and-coming actors of all time, Andrew Garfield. Because you know, the one thing everybody thinks about Peter Parker is that he's a really cool, slick kind of guy.
Hey, look at that spider.
Some spiders change colors to blend into their environment. It's a defense mechanism.
Peter, what makes you think I would want to know that?
Who wouldn't?
Homer, that isn't very nice.
Marge, try to understand. As a jock, it is my duty to give nerds a hard time.
Enough backstory. We need to get down to brass tacks here. Why were these two amazing Spider-Man movies so universally disliked? And why, in recent years, have we seen a surge of people coming to their defense? Well, we're gonna answer all those questions, so, shut up and let's watch the movies.
And now, our feature presentation.
The Amazing Spider-Man actually starts out pretty differently than we are used to. We actually get to see Peter's parents when he's a young boy. And I'll be real, when I saw this as a kid, I kind of flipped my shit because I didn't even realize that Peter Parker had parents. I didn't understand that when I was like 12 years old. So I was like, this movie's garbage immediately. Right when it started, I said, Peter has parents. Bad movie. I do understand now that this is from the comics, alright? So it turns out that Peter Parker's parents are actually spies, but Peter doesn't know this as his parents have to flee the country. And on their way out, they get into a bit of a funny little incident. Has to be risen by his Uncle Ben and Aunt May. Just how we like it. So flash forward a few years, and Peter is an edgy teenager now. Our new Ben and May are a little younger, but I actually really like the actors' portrayals here. Martin Sheen brings this new vibe to Uncle Ben, and they show it really well when Peter comes home with a scrape on his face and Uncle Ben instantly knows that he's been in a fight.
How's the other guy look? Come on, I know a right cross when I see one.
Yes or no? Do I have to call somebody's father?
Throughout the beginning of the movie, Peter is getting little clues to the mystery behind what his parents were up to, and a lot of the movie is driven by that question and trying to find out what happened to them. And all of these questions lead Peter to Oscorp, which is actually pretty sick, and we get a much more detailed look at the building than we ever saw of it in the Sam Raimi series. But moving on, Peter steals a dude's name badge to get into the tour at Oscorp, which I kind of feel like isn't something Peter would do, by the way. But you know, that kind of thing is gonna happen a lot in these movies, so what the hell, let's throw an evil Peter counter up on the screen. But it's also here that we officially get to meet Gwen Stacy, played by the fantastic Emma Stone. And I know we have a lot to get through, but I feel like it's important that we mention, sort of famously, Andrew and Emma were dating during these movies in real life, and well, it's kind of been a long-going debate whether or not that helped or hurt their chemistry. I'm kind of on the hurt side.
See? What? What?
But alright, no more tangents. For real, let's get back to the movie. So Peter sneaks around Oscorp for a bit and wanders into this insane spider sanctuary where they're genetically engineering these little dudes. And, oh god, they're all over him! They're all over him! Oh god! So yeah, Peter's gonna get the hell out of there, but you're not gonna believe this. Yeah, he got bit by a spider. I bet you didn't see that shit coming. He starts getting his powers literally on the bus ride home, and I really hate this scene. It's so weird. He like rips off a lady's shirt and then he like comically kicks all the asses of everyone on the train, and they're just normal people. It's just such a bizarre choice. But cutting forward a little bit, Peter uses his Nepo baby powers to get into Dr. Connor's house, and he goes to get some answers about his dad since they work together. Connors explains that the research was to basically give humans animal properties, but it never worked because of their decay rate algorithm. And Peter solves it right in front of him. Cool, man. Yeah, fuck it. His life's work. Doesn't matter. Whatever. The next day at school, Peter is having some fun with his new powers. And you know what? This scene is so popular, I'm just gonna play it. And I'm gonna add like 5 evil Peter dings to the counter, because this shit is just wild.
I bring it! Come on, partner! Come on!
So Peter gets a stern talking to from Ben about getting revenge on people, and Ben tells him as punishment he has to pick up Aunt May at 9 o'clock tonight. And don't forget, after school, Peter goes to this abandoned garage to have like a pretty sick skateboarding montage. I really like this part. He swings on chains, so it kind of sets up the ground for him coming up with web shooters. It's pretty cool. Then Pete heads over to Oscorp where Connors and him implement the algorithm that Peter solved, and it actually works. They give a rat the regeneration ability of a lizard. But wait, did you guys forget about something? Yeah, that's right, you were supposed to pick up Aunt May at 9 o'clock. So yeah, Peter gets chewed out and he storms out of the house, and Uncle Ben chases after him. Pete's at a gas station that gets robbed, and similar to Toby in the original series, he lets the robber get away, and Uncle Ben gets shot. Now I'm pretty torn on this scene because on the one hand, I like how the fight directly led to this happening, but I hate how Andrew gets his own not my problem moment. It works for Toby because he's been nothing but a good guy all the way up until that point, so it's satisfying to see him be a little vindictive for one. And it's the one time he does it, and the one time he acts like that, his uncle dies. But this Peter is just kind of an asshole all the time, so it really doesn't feel any different from what he'd normally do. And again, similar to Toby, this Peter decides to don a homemade suit and start hunting down the man who killed his Uncle Ben. But just way more edgy and violent this time. Also, during this period, the cops start looking into Spider-Man, namely Police Captain Stacy. But one montage later, we got ourselves a full-on Spider-Man.
Don't mess with the amazing Spider-Man!
He takes down a ton of criminals, but still can't find that one guy. And back at home, May is begging him to explain what he's been up to, coming home bruised and battered all the time. In the meantime, Doc Connors is getting fired from Oscorp because the bosses don't like his idea to use genetic mutation serum on himself. And Peter gets to go on a date with Gwen, and we find out her dad is actually Captain Stacy. Sick! And after dinner, shockingly, Peter literally reveals that he's Spider-Man to Gwen, which is like crazy that it happens that fast. I don't know whose decision that was, but sure, don't drag that out at all. But no time to think about that because as literally everyone saw coming, Doc Connors transforms into a giant lizard and starts causing chaos. So 1 hour into the movie, we finally get a full-on Spider-Man fight against a real villain. Lizard gets away, but Spider-Man gets to save this kid, and kind of the best scenes in these two movies are him saving a small kid. They do it like 3 times, if I remember, and they all hit really good. Pretty quickly, Peter is able to put together that Connors is the lizard, and he tries to convince Captain Stacy of it, but he's not buying it. So Spider-Man is gonna have to take things into his own hands. He heads down to the sewer, and he sets up this web to alert him when something starts moving. This is really sick, and it's not something we see Spider-Man do like ever in the movies, like act like a real spider, so props to them for such a creative scene. But it kind of backfires because Lizard gets away again and finds Peter's camera with literally his full name like monogrammed on it. So you know, now he knows his secret identity too. Okay, we still have a whole second movie to do after this, so I'm gonna fast track through the ending here a little bit. After getting beaten up and inconvenienced by Peter so much, Connors really loses it and decides to enact his master plan of turning literally everyone in New York into lizards. Spidey tracks him down to Oscorp where he's gonna try to use this tower to spread the lizard serum to everyone, and in great news, Gwen is also there making the antidote. But on the way to Oscorp, Peter gets nabbed by the cops, and Captain Stacy unmasks him. Sweet! A third person that knows his identity. Alright, fuck me, I guess. But after he says that Gwen is in trouble, of course, Captain Stacy lets Peter go, and it's time to fight, finally. They do this really cool thing where the dad of the kid from earlier sees Spider-Man struggling on TV, so he has all of his crane operator friends turn their cranes so that Peter has a clear swing all the way to Oscorp Tower. It's like kind of dumb, but I really like seeing the city rally together to help Spider-Man, kind of like they did for Toby in Spider-Man 2. This final fight against the lizard is sick, but sadly it lacks any quips or really any Spidey talking at all. It really misses on that aspect of his character. But with a little help from Captain Stacy, Spidey manages to get the antidote in and prevent the whole city from becoming lizards, and Connors turns back to normal too. But sadly, during all of this, Captain Stacy dies, and the last thing he tells Peter is to stay away from Gwen to keep her safe. And that will affect him heavily going into the next movie. So these are my final thoughts before I give my rating. 1, I think that Spider-Man not doing any quips in his fight scenes really makes the movie feel empty, and I don't like that he doesn't have any jokes at all. It really sucks. 2, as I said before, the Gwen and Peter relationship is just really awkward, and they don't work together on screen for me at any point. And finally, it just kind of has a boring, predictable plot that I don't really like that much. There's not much going on in it. And as far as a Spider-Man origin story goes, Tobey's movies do it much, much better. So with all that said, I'm giving The Amazing Spider-Man a 4 out of 10, and I'd like to move on to The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and find out how they made a movie so bad that it ended a trilogy before the third one could ever be made. instantly starts off way better than the first one, as we see our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man swinging through the streets towards a car chase, and he's actually being Spider-Man. He's saying things as he swings, he's making quips towards the bad guys. It's really crazy to say after how lifeless number 1 feels, but this is exactly what a Spider-Man movie should be like. But our story in 2 picks up with Gwen and Peter graduating high school, Peter just barely making it in time for them to call his name. Pete is still seeing Gwen, but he's also seeing the ghost of Captain Stacy haunting him all the time, so that kind of makes it hard for him to be around her. Because as you should all remember from like 5 minutes ago, he told Peter to stay away from Gwen as he was dying. So at dinner that night, Peter actually breaks up with Gwen to keep her safe. Again, classic Spidey move. Meanwhile, we get to meet this guy, Max Dillon. He's a scientist at Oscorp, and Peter saved him during that opening car chase, so he has become obsessed with Spider-Man. And you know, most of the hate on this movie is because of this character, but I actually kind of like Jamie Foxx's portrayal, playing this wacky scientist character, and as some of you know, he will soon become our Electro. But not before we meet this next guy. It's Harry Osborn. Yeah, you guys know Harry, Peter's best friend that we literally never heard about once in the first movie. He's here now, and his dad is dying of mysterious disease that he also gets to have from genetics. Sick. Surely that won't lead to any irrational, crazy behavior on his part. So Norman Osborn dies, but not before giving Harry all of the research that he has on the disease. Back at Oscorp, Max has to stay behind to fix a problem in the generator room, and this happens. But I'm sure he's gonna be fine. Back with Harry, he's addressing the board of investors since he's in charge of Oscorp now. And this isn't important at all, but I just wanted to mention that they weirdly try to set up Felicia Hardy, aka Black Cat, in this scene. It's just bizarre, and they literally never do anything with it. Maybe they would have in a third movie, but I don't know. But more importantly, Peter comes to check up on his old friend Harry. Honestly, this scene of Harry and Peter at the beach grinds the movie to a halt. It has the weirdest, most unnatural dialogue. Andrew keeps slipping in and out of this Brooklyn accent for some reason. It is bizarre. Anyway, Electro wakes up at the morgue all scared and confused, but with crazy electric powers. He wanders out into Times Square and starts absorbing all the electricity. I actually really like this scene. Max is scared, but slowly realizing he finally has what he's always wanted, for everyone to see him. Spider-Man arrives and tries to talk him down, even telling him that he remembers him, but as usual, the cops ruin everything by shooting him, and we get to see one of the coolest Spidey saves ever. And he takes down Electro for the first time. So jumping forward a bit, Harry is able to get into the file that his dad gave him, and he stumbles across the research on using spider DNA to cure diseases. He puts together that Spider-Man must have gotten his powers from an Oscorp spider, so he begs Peter to get some of his blood. And since Peter takes his photos for the Bugle, he must have the answer. Peter says he'll try to find him. As he's leaving Oscorp, Gwen, at the same time, is getting followed by security for looking into Max Dillon. They end up hiding in a supply closet and they kiss, so like, maybe they're back together. It's a really on and off thing throughout the entire movie, and they're the worst parts of the movie. By far, it sucks. Later on, we get a scene that I actually do like, where Peter, in his suit as Spidey, goes to Harry to tell him that it's simply too dangerous to give him blood, as it could have a really bad reaction. Harry cracks crashes out about it, which will lead to him using something else from his dad's files, the Goblin suit. This next section of the movie is really focused on the Peter's parents mystery and the Gwen drama, so I'm just gonna summarize it because it's really boring. Peter finds a secret lab and message from his dad saying that Norman was selling his research to weapon manufacturers, so he ran away and destroyed any evidence. Also, Gwen decides to go to Oxford in London. That's all you gotta know. Meanwhile, they finally figured out how to mash the two plot lines they have going together when Harry frees Electro to help him steal his goblin suit and kill Spider-Man. So jumping forward, Electro takes control of the power grid for the whole city and draws Spider-Man out. Oh, and Gwen is still here. I do really like this big fight with Electro, but after Spidey overcharges him and defeats him, it's the Goblin's turn. And he's gonna do something not very nice. So yeah, now Peter's mom, dad, uncle, and girlfriend are all dead. That's rough. And after that emotional beatdown, they end the movie on a stupid-ass rhino fight trying to set up a Sinister Six that would never see the light of day. And that's the end of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Final thoughts, while I do think this movie improves on a lot from the first one, it still has a ton of faults. Harry's storyline is completely forced into the middle of the Electro stuff. Nobody is doing good acting in this, and I mean not a single person. And it ends in a really disappointing and stupid way. But hey, at least they let him make some jokes, and the fight scenes are all classic Spider-Man. It's getting a 5 out of 10, not much better than the first one. Welcome back, guys. If you notice my clothes changing or the set changing throughout this video, just ignore it. I definitely didn't film this over multiple weeks. So if you guys are paying attention, we have now reviewed Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3, The Amazing Spider-Man, and The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And if we are to continue on our journey to review every single Spider-Man movie, that means next on the list is Spider-Man Homecoming, which is the introduction of the Tom Holland trilogy and the introduction of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Stay tuned.